Hello, everyone. Happy to have you here. Thank you very much for coming. We're going to start this panel in a few. So we're going to speak about bridging crypto to fiat, fiat to crypto, and we're going to discuss about the challenges. Let's start by introductions. So I'm Charlie Redjuan. I'm the deal flow manager in Capital Nature, which is a renewable energy VC that's focusing on renewable, smart cities, smart mobility. Beside that, I'm doing consulting to some major VCs and tech research. We will start by introducing each one of the participants. Let's start by Max.
Hi, everybody. Are you listening? I am Max Demian. I'm CEO and founder of Geo Protocol. It is an off-chain solution for building network connecting both crypto and fiat money or some digital assets. So in simple words, it is a universal Lightning network which allow to provide transfers and exchanges in different assets. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Paul Puey. I'm CEO and co-founder of Edge. We are a mobile app non-custodial exchange and key management platform for dApps. And our goal, you just got a whole panel full of maximalists over here just a few minutes ago. I consider myself more of a hold your own keys maximalist. We want to get people off the centralized exchanges, especially your kind of retail investor, and get them to hold their own keys, but still be able to buy, sell, and trade from within a single application.
Hi, I'm Nimrod from Simplex. We enable cryptocurrency exchanges, brokers, wallets, media sites, pretty much whoever wants to sell crypto. So we enable them to let the users pay with a credit card. We've recently launched the ability to sell crypto and take money to your credit card or debit card globally. And we have quite a few additional services in the pipeline that will enable adoption, meaning both ways, getting into crypto from fiat directly and getting out as well.
Shalom, ani Yuki, ani mi Japan, shalom ka, kamaze ore. Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Yuki from Recruit Group. The Recruit Group is the biggest internet conglomerate company in Japan. We are facing 70 million users, 200,000 clients in Japan, and we are investing to blockchain startup in Israel and the United States. And the reason I greeting in Hebrew is because there's always the barriers to communicate in the language, but Bitcoin is the common currency that we can use each other. So that's why I trust to greeting in Hebrew, and I'm not sure my Hebrew is good or not, but please take the picture of me because unfortunately I cannot take by myself here. So please take the pictures and tag me on the Twitters, and my Twitter account is _TANAYUK. So please remember _TANAYUK. Okay, that's it.
Great, great. I'm really happy to have you all here. It's a panel of 4 founders. It's kind of a big one, and we have pretty big names. Nimrod, Yuki, Paul, Max. I want to brief, I'm not sure if you all kind of mentioned about your specific project. Max, can you please elaborate more about specific Geo is?
Are you hearing me? Oh, okay. So, as I said, it is distributed network of nodes with different ledgers, and our aim is to provide instant transfers between different ledgers. So, I mean, blockchain, it is also ledger, and fiat money register, it's also different ledger. There is no single ledger for in our network, but our aim is to provide atomic transfers and atomic swaps in really distributed network. Yeah.
Great. For the viewers that are not aware what is atomic swaps, it's changing between protocols. It means like I want to send someone Bitcoin and he wants to receive Ether. So you can do it by atomic swaps. You're kind of changing on the spot between the different protocols. Some of the terms that we're going to speak today are going to be very technical and very hardcore communities. I will try to explain them as we go. So, yeah.
Yeah, we can, in real life, we can imagine that, for example, I'm from Ukraine, and when I want to buy coffee, so I send our Ukrainian hryvnias, and it will be in few seconds converted in, for example, Bitcoin, and then in shekel, and then your merchant will receive local money. So there is one of the case.
Great. Yuki, can you please just tell the audience how you're related and talk about your one of your investments in the blockchain space?
Yeah, sure. In Israel, we invested to the startup called Breeze, which is the right-wing network wallet, and Beam, which is the member coins, and Cody, which is the leveraging a dark network and providing so many financial products in the world. And in the United States, we recently invested to the startup called Blockstack, or Scale, or BlockFi. You know, there's so many portfolios in our portfolio.
A lot of solutions for penetrating, like entering the market, which is kind of lit. Breeze is one of the leading wallets for Lightning Network, which is the second layer on top the blockchain of Bitcoin that letting to do really fast transactions. So let's go into the questions. Building the bridge between fiat to crypto. So you guys, we all were here during the last bull run. We know now that the crypto winter is still here. Let's talk about the things that you learned during the last bull run, the 2017 hype, and what are the things that you guys think that we should not repeat? What are the mistakes that you can say, those are mistakes, don't do that? It's kind of eliminate mass adoption. Start by Paul.
Well, on a company level, I think we saw a lot of companies overscale. This is a really interesting problem that startups in cryptocurrency have, that startups in any other tech industry don't have, is that they have this really, really spiking and crashing cycle that affects their business, but they have to manage on the viewpoint of customer service and engineering, and not overstaff when you have the big spikes, but then not overstaff when you have the valleys, but not understaff when you have the spikes. So managing that and kind of keeping yourself at a level playing field in the midst of the ups and down cycles is one of the biggest challenges, and will help understand as you go through these ups and down cycles how you can staff accordingly, because you know that you're going to need more people, but don't overdo it, because you know that eventually you're going to have a down cycle right afterwards. So I think managing the under or overstaffing is probably what many companies didn't do very well during that last bull cycle, but I think we learn and we'll do better coming into the next one.
I may add that, I think from my mind, crypto winter is the best time, because it's the time in which appearing really cool projects which motivated not by easy money, but by ideas, by purpose to make values in real life. So I think in 5 or 10 years we will not remember projects which grow for 10 or 100 times, but we will know projects people use every day or almost every day. So I think it's the best time. It's a main point that we should to focus on projects, on technologies with real value.
Yeah, in 2017, there's so many ICO projects, and at that moment, people are trying to build real business use case with the ICO token and so on. But at that moment, the blockchain was not that perfect as a protocol for creating real business use case. So what we need to do for the next bull run is to see what is the real technology on the protocol layers, and that is the most important one. And on the other hand, people tend to looking at only crypto areas. But if you're looking at, for example, USD JPY market for the currency trading, we are both looking at the US market and Japan economy, right? But so what we need to do is to look at the real fiat areas and also the crypto areas and see, when it's going to be a brew timing for the cryptocurrency. And most of the time, mainly crisis in the real business is, making the crypto areas so hot. So the next aiming will be, the next crisis. I don't know what is going to be the next crisis. Probably big earthquake will be hitting Japan, and all the banking system corrupted, and Japanese people start using Bitcoin also. But that crisis is the important timing for cryptocurrencies to be, mainstream.
I think that one of the biggest problems right now in the ecosystem is adoption. So I think in the next bull run, the main task of the entire industry should be retention of the new users. There were millions of new users added to the cryptocurrency ecosystem. Most of them just got screwed over by shitcoins instead of being kind of integrated into actual users who will continue using products from within the ecosystem. So I would say that not everything that could be developed should be developed, but rather things that will actually have some retention.
Great. I could not agree. I could not say I would not agree. What?
With respect to the kind of user adoption and obviously people falling off, one thing I think that's underestimated that's actually pretty critical, especially on a fiat on-ramping point of view, is that people keep thinking that we're in this speculative phase, and we are, and that most crypto and Bitcoin is traded on a centralized exchange, but people underestimate how much is actually traded or acquired using on-chain transactions, such as through services like Simplex within Edge or on local Bitcoins. And there's a lot of comments saying, oh, well, scaling and how much of that scaling we need today being minimal because, it's not a payment network. Crypto and Bitcoin's not a payment network yet. But realize just to acquire Bitcoin, you still need some level of actual scalability. And we saw that limit in 2017. I think we can't underestimate the need for some need of scaling so that people don't have a severely poor experience just getting onboarded, which I know for us, we saw as being a major course of customer complaints and concerns and frustration, and for some people just giving up and kind of leaving the cryptocurrency industry. So while we don't need maybe your kind of Visa level scale, we still need some aspect of scaling just to get people onboarded, especially if you want to get people off the centralized exchanges, which we fundamentally really want to do.
Yeah, that's a great both. Let's talk about key management. So, what's unique in this panel that most of the panelists actually meeting the users on their first steps. Yuki invested in Breeze. Nimrod is doing their converting from using credit card to purchase coins. Edge Wallet, also Geo Protocol. Let's talk about key management. So everybody knows that it's not an easy task to teach people, newbies, how to manage their keys. And for that, we have a lot of compromise on the Bitcoin values, such as custodial solution, which mean they're not different from your bank account. Someone is managing your keys for you. What is your opinions about that? And where is the compromise? How are we going to find like a compromise between custodial to non-custodial solutions?
Well, this is definitely a piece that kind of rings very dear to my heart. This is what we've been focusing on at our company since founding 5 years ago, is key management. And so a lot of people start talking about education, like, oh, we need to educate the community on how to do key management and crypto and whatnot. I do think that education is key, but education needs to be focused a little bit more on the general value proposition of why Bitcoin, why crypto in general. I think key management, though, has to go into the fold of something you don't have to educate on. It just needs to be hidden. It needs to be invisible. Cryptography has been hard. Key management for just cryptography, pre-cryptocurrency, has been hard. And if you look at any cryptography that you've generally used, mass adopted cryptography, it's been where people never had to see a key. They've never really dealt with it. SSL is an example. You just simply put in your browser a domain that you want to hit, and suddenly a green lock appears. The keys automatically get created and shared as needed. And I think one of the challenges in our industry is that we have a lot of these cypherpunk purists which have created the foundation, which is awesome, but also kind of throw out the baby with the bathwater. They're looking for perfect. They're letting, perfect be enemy of the good. And if we don't have this perfect, key management that, you absolutely know you have the full ownership, then it's not worth it. That's a similar rhetoric, as opposed to let's find out what's sufficiently good enough and secure, hidden from the user, and able to be mass adopted. And when we achieve that, that's what effectively brings out the true value of crypto, where fiat on-ramps basically stick around for us to get money off the old system into the new. And after that, we have our own keys, we have our control, and then crypto starts to rule from then on, because now you're just going crypto to crypto in the future of our world.
Yeah, I don't think it's an issue, frankly. I think it's so far from being an issue to 99% of the users, which I think, as Paul said, it shouldn't be a topic that we discuss in something which isn't completely technical, just like the cryptographic layer. So.
I think that we yes, we should to rise crypto culture and culture to self-control of your asset, but I think we may stop divide people to Bitcoin enlightened and how to say, dark mass here. So we should focus to they are just people, and we should focus to people needs and people preferences. So I think in the future there will be a part of people using custodial services and part of people using no custodial solutions. So the main point is that we should focus to people needs and give them their solutions for according to their needs.
Yeah, dealing with the private key is super difficult. When I bought the hardware wallet, I asked my father that, hey, I bought the new hardware wallet. Then, my father told me that, is it made in Italy? Such kind of things. So my father or mother are not familiar with, the private key or even hardware wallet. They think that is just a USB device. So it's very hard, and for the short term, I believe, it's my opinion, but custodial way, centralized way of managing the private key is, I think, the better way of achieving the mass adoptions. But for the long term, non-custodial way would be better than custodial way, because the blockchain itself is decentralized idea, so we should manage the private key in the decentralized way. But here is an irony and paradox that once those kind of decentralized players achieve such a decentralized ways to manage the private key, then who is eager to use such system, which is centralized player, like a crypto exchange is looking for how they can cleverly managing the private key and so on. So eventually centralized player will integrate decentralized technology into them, and centralized player will be the winner. So there's always the fighting between the custodian and non-custodian. Not sure which is going to be the best way.
I think there's a bit of a slippery slope with the way the industry is progressing into the custodial solutions. And if you look at gold as an analogy, gold was, a kind of decentralized currency, and that no one controlled its issuance. And we moved it back and forth with its layer 1 solution, which was physical air, like me handing it over to somebody else. But the solution to be able to be a more convenient payment mechanism of gold was to custody it. And if you take that analogy and bring it to Bitcoin, if that's the more convenient way of paying for it, and then we end up custodying Bitcoin the way we custodied gold, we actually lose the one fundamental benefit of what makes Bitcoin Gold 2.0, which is that you actually have a way of transferring it between people in a non-custodial manner. Every money that's ever existed since the very beginning of time before Bitcoin didn't have its own payment network. Its payment network was the air. It's like handed over to somebody else. And the only way to make that more efficient was to custody it. And so realize that that is the one unique value proposition of Bitcoin. The kind of store of value is the base by which we grow its value and make it more stable, but its unique technology is the fact that we can transfer it. Now, once we just say, well, you know, custody it, then we're compromising a significant piece, if not all of what brings it value in the first place. And if you think that gold didn't get compromised, it effectively did. Because the custodians would always inflate and leverage whatever they custody. It's kind of happened over and over and over. And so the value proposition of the limited quantity of an asset as soon as it's custodied has historically gone out the door. So take all of what you think is valuable about Bitcoin and really ask yourself, if the vast majority of the world held it custodially, transferred it custodially, would we still have a lot of that value proposition? And if not, then let's drive people and the user experience that we're competing with the custodial solutions, let's drive them to being able to transact with it, you know, peer to peer.
Great. So now let's speak about something you guys are not agree, because in most of the things that you did. Let's talk about the future. So some of you, like I already have one-on-one talks with each one of the panelists, and some of you are agree that crypto, Bitcoin is definitely going to be the most dominant currency in the world. It's going to replace the US dollar. And some of you believe that fiat currencies are always here to stay, and they're always going to work alongside with cryptocurrencies. Yuki, you definitely believe that fiat currency will stay here. Paul, as far as I remember, does not agree with that. And I definitely know that Max does not agree with that. So let's give that talk to you guys.
I think for the first, we should pay attention that about three main functions of money. It is store of value, it is measure of value, and it is means of circulation. So actually, Bitcoin provide one of these three functions, store of value. And when we talk about market, okay. Simply example. When we have bought coffee this morning, did you price this coffee in Bitcoin or Ethereum? No. You actually have priced it in dollar or shekel because when we talk about cryptocurrencies with limited emission, such as Bitcoin, so limited emission lead to volatility, and volatility asset is highly inconvenient to individuals and entrepreneurs. When we talk about entrepreneurs, they will not able to take a financial risk of volatility asset. So, what do I say about that? There is no cryptocurrencies at the moment that, on my mind, can change fiat money in our real life economical relations. But there is good news that in DeFi we can provide emission of fiat, in quotes, monies, and it is cool. It's very huge direction because it is a new model of emission, because it is totally backed by crypto asset, and the next point is that this emission is not regulated by central institutions. It is regulated by market tools such as supply and demand. So I think it's
sorry, we are kind of short in time. Nimrod, what is your perspective about that?
I think fiat is here to stay. I don't think it's going anywhere. I don't think that governments will just, hand off the ability to mint their own currencies. It's one of the core functionalities of governance. Maybe in a few decades they will move to a digital currency of their own, like a USD actually working by the or minted by the US government, which I actually find it kind of weird that they allow the minting of other forms of USD, like by Bitfinex, for example. But regardless, I don't think that the most common means of payment is going to be gone that fast in places where there aren't credit cards or other payment networks. Still, cash is king.
Paul, what do you think about that?
Testing. All right. I think, and I'm fairly confident Fiat is not here to stay, that it's going. It might take a while, but that it's going away. And how I measure this is by the fact that you look at crypto, Bitcoin specifically, it's about 10x in value over the course of 2 to 4 years, historically over the past 10 years. But today, though, even though it's 10x in value, that 10x is like tiny, tiny, tiny amounts. And at the current market cap that it's at, it still doesn't have the size to be stable. It also doesn't have the size to be in a vast majority of our asset holdings. But take 2 more bubble cycles. We're at about $200 billion market cap of Bitcoin, 300 plus for all of cryptocurrency. Take 2 more cycles. We go from 200 billion to 2 trillion to 20 trillion. At that point, you're twice the market cap of gold for just Bitcoin alone if it continues on that ramp. And at 20 trillion, you've got a fairly large tanker on the water that is going to be hard to move. And stability significantly increases. And not only does stability increase, but now, though all those people that held crypto now have a larger portion of their wealth in it than they do in the dollar side. So that does 2 things. Number one, it, as mentioned I think in the previous panel, now you just have a lot of crypto, you don't have much left of the fiat to spend, and you now will demand to be able to actually use crypto on a utility side. And then number 2, when you're at $20 trillion, or in some measures from our previous high of 20K, $40 to $50 trillion market cap, what does that start to do to the actual value of fiat? Fiat hasn't devalued at all because of crypto's increase in valuation. But at what point does crypto actually start to affect the valuation of fiat? At 50 trillion, there's only a total of $80 trillion of M1 currency in the world. 50 trillion, I imagine, it's hard to do the exact math to see what kind of an effect it will have. But I imagine when people start seeing in some of the biggest global currencies, such as dollar, euro, yuan, and the pound, once they start seeing more devaluation on an annual basis than they're used to, maybe 2x, 3x that, now you start seeing an interest in no longer holding those currencies. And what ends up happening is you actually have a migration over into crypto, and realize that the function of government is not to manage currency. It wasn't that way for thousands of years. It just kind of fell as a mechanism of control, but it's not necessarily one that's required. And we have had functioning governments that didn't necessarily have that. But when given the power, you kind of you're almost too tempted to abuse it. It's hard not to.
Exactly my point. I don't think they're ever going to give it up.
They don't give it up. We just take it from them.
Yeah, we see that happening all the time.
It could definitely take a while, but control of very large institutions, government happens to be the biggest one, control can leave. It's left in the information industry when the internet came about, right? The newspapers and the publications, which had a lot of control over what information you can see and what you read, lost control of that with the advent of new technology, which distributes that control.
Yeah, to some extent, I totally agree on Paul's opinion, but on the other hand, to some extent, of course, the fiat money has its benefit. For example, when you go to Japan, one piece of sushi always costs exactly 100 Japanese yen, which is fixing the price of the local currency. So the USD replace all the currency in each country? Never, right? Because each currency has the benefit of having each countries and each currencies. So there must be a various way of paying the money for all certain values. So
that's a reference of a unit of account. As was actually mentioned, I think, by Giacomo at the last panel, unit of account is one of the last things that a money gets to when you start pricing things in that currency. But that happens when you first have some level of stability. So like I said, this could take a while. I'm predicting 8, 12 years or so. You need several more bubbles, 2 to 3 more bubbles of crypto 10x's. But at some point, once it's as stable as gold, it's very easy to be the unit account where you say, you know, standard sushi over in Japan now is 1,000 satoshis. And so why does it have to necessarily be yen or dollars? It can actually be a cryptocurrency.
I think that the reaction of the US government to the Facebook Libra project was a good example of the extent they will go to protect their force of minting money. I think it's almost dead on arrival just because they understand the threat. That if Facebook actually mints their own currency, it becomes the largest sovereign nation. And you can basically sell all of your dollars for Libras and say, yeah, I can't pay your taxes anymore. They're not going to allow that. And as long as you don't think the nation state model is going to collapse, I don't think fiat is going to go anywhere. It might, but I think it'll be hand in hand.
It'll be definitely tough to unseat the dollar, but as we've seen in history, a couple hundred years is about as long as most empires, you know, can exist before collapsing. And actually, the debasement of currency is one of the #1 reasons why they do. And so, if crypto increases in value sufficiently into the tens of trillions or hundreds of trillions of dollars, that actually removes a lot of the ability to pay for the force that is imparted to retain value in your currency and insist that you use that currency. Because that's one of the reasons why the dollar is valuable. And I'm from the US. Obviously, I have a lot that I've benefited from the economy in the US having lived there, but realize that the US and the dollar was chosen as the global reserve because it was backed by gold. That's when all countries decided to do that. They said, okay, after World War II, the UK and the pound got debased, and so what could they shift to? They shifted to the dollar. 1971, the dollar unpegged from gold. But why did they continue using it? That's because the US enforced that all trade of oil needed to go through the dollar, and they used military force to do that. And they continue to do that if they have the money to pay for that. If you don't have the money to pay for that, because a lot of people have exited that monetary system, then how do you enforce that people continue to use the dollar and therefore continue to have value in that currency? And over time, crypto simply takes over.
Great. I'm actually with Paul on that. I definitely believe that crypto going to come to be a standard. It might be centralized crypto, kind of a Libra. But thank you very much for this talk. It was a great panel. I highly enjoyed that. You guys are welcome to reach each one of them. They're going to be here outside. And thank you very much for listening.
Yeah.